Hi, welcome to Chapter 2. You made it. The Chapter 2 essays, How Do Monsters Reflect Their Time? And the essays in this chapter look at monsters and the times, places, and peoples that they come from. So as we did with Chapter 1, please read through each of the articles in the chapter, and you can see the reflection and response question or the making connection questions, which I am asking you to consider for your essay. So read through the chapter, look at these, think about them, and pick the one that excites you and energizes you the most, because that's what you'll do the best at. Now, the final draft of the essay is due Monday, November 15. In other words, just about 2 weeks from today at 11:59 p.m. Be sure to follow the out-of-class essay guidelines for matters of form and style. If you haven't done so already, please go back to the modules and double-check the out-of-class essay guidelines. Make sure you know them and follow them. I expect you to do that. Be sure to include a word count at the end of your essay. Those, of course, are exceedingly easy to get these days. Remember, you must meet minimum requirements, including word count, sources, and subject matter. And remember, no late essays will be accepted. Now, we are going to proceed just like we did with Chapter 1. Remember, in Chapter 1, we did a thesis and topic outline. Then we did a rough draft. Then we did peer edits. And then we turned in our final draft. That's exactly what we're doing here in Chapter 2. The thesis statement and topic outline is due this Friday, November the 5th. That's right. Do not procrastinate. You have to 11:59 p.m. on Friday to get this done. That means choosing the question, doing some preliminary research, coming up with your thesis, and coming up with an outline, a plan of attack of how you're going to develop your thesis. When you turn this in, I want you to have MLA citation entries for 2 sources. The last time you only had to have 1, right? Now we have to have 2. But neither of those sources, those 2, can be from our textbook. Okay? I want you to start doing more research. Use the Mesa College Learning Resource Center. You can go there in person, and it is open nowadays. Or, if you're not comfortable with that yet, still continue to use the online databases that we have, such as EBSCOhost and JSTOR. Also, a lot of ebooks are available, so forth and so on. Now, the class will be divided into peer editing groups, just as we did with Chapter 1. These will be new groups, but we'll use the same instructions that we did for Chapter 1 on how to get to your group on the Canvas page. So, on the day that you submit the rough draft, which is due Wednesday, November the 10th, you need to submit it both to me and to your Canvas work group, so that everybody else in the group can read your rough draft and you can read theirs. That's Wednesday night. Then you have until Friday, November the 12th at 11:59 to complete peer edit sheets for each of the rough drafts other than your own. Okay? So for example, if there are 4 people in your group, you have yours and 3 others. That means you're going to be doing 3 peer edits, due by 11:59 on Friday. Then from there, you have the weekend and Monday to finish your final draft. Look at the peer edits. That's why we do these, so that you can see what other people have said, what they thought as they were reading your paper. And of course, you can also start thinking in terms of your own analysis of your own work. Now, the minimum requirements, we're still at 1,000 to approximately 1,400 words, the same length that we just did in Chapter 1. Please remember to use strong essay structure, including introduction, concession, rebuttal arguments, main body, paragraphs, and the conclusion. If these terms are new or you don't understand them, please go back to the introduction module. Look at the standard argumentative essay. There is a handout and a video that accompanies the handout. You make sure you watch that video. Don't just download the handout by itself. That won't be enough. This time we want citations from at least 4 different sources. 4 sources that originate in print or have print analogs. That means these are newspapers, magazines, academic journals, books, government reports, and other kinds of documents of that nature. Now, 2 of these sources at least must be scholarly work. Scholarly work means things like dissertations, peer-reviewed journal articles, or works out of a university press book. Now, you can access these most easily by using our databases at Mesa College, JSTOR or EBSCOhost. Remember when you use EBSCOhost to click on the little option button that says peer-reviewed only. Okay, these are in addition to any sources that you take from the textbook. Of course, you may use the textbook, but these are on top of that. So we're using at least 4 of these sources, plus the textbook perhaps, and if it's appropriate, other sources like movies. And of course, use the MLA format in presentation and documentation, including correct works cited list. Now, the video introducing Chapter 2 walks through all these essays pretty carefully, but I just kind of want to give a brief overview. Genoways, Here Be Monsters, is written shortly after the events of 9/11, and it concerns issues like what we perceive monsters to be, who becomes the monster to us, that sort of thing. And most importantly, how do we respond when we feel threatened? Cohen, The Birth of Monsters, examines some monsters that you may be very interested in, like the griffin or the rock. These monsters and others are in some ways not quite the standard ones that we are used to seeing in the Western or American tradition. Especially, Cohen talks about 4 mammal birds from Asia. And you might want to, if you're interested in getting out of the Western tradition, this might be a question that you want to pursue about the mammal bird monsters. Beowulf is the Old English poem. In the story of Beowulf, Beowulf actually takes on 3 different monsters: Grendel, Grendel's mother, and a dragon. The passage that we have in our textbook deals strictly with Grendel. It's a hero tale of the oldest fashion, right? Beowulf is this great conquering physical hero who has to kill something, Grendel in this case, to make everybody safe and allow civilization to flourish. Warning. If your only exposure to Beowulf is the movie with Angelina Jolie, I have to tell you, that movie took a lot of liberties with the Beowulf poem, and you will be led astray if you follow it. Visanor presents to us an American Indian or Native American story from the Anishinaabe peoples who lived in the area that we now call the Great Lakes. It's another hero story, another physical hero story, in which Nanabozo has to kill the gambler, this threatening monster that is wreaking havoc on his people. It's a very interesting story. I hope you enjoy it. You might consider writing your paper on that. Kaplan's Cursed by a Bite takes a look at the science behind why people in the past might have believed in zombies and vampires and werewolves. In other words, it wasn't completely out of the range of possibility based on what people knew in the past. Now, we're not talking about the Dracula vampire. We're now talking about the vampires from a long time ago, before Polidori and Bram Stoker. Poole takes on issues, again, of conflict between peoples. When European settlers came to what they called the New World, of course they found people already living here, the Native Americans. That created, obviously, as we know well, conflict. People looking at other people and seeing monsters. But in addition to seeing monsters in the Native Americans, Poole also talks about the settlers finding monsters amongst themselves, and particularly the Salem witch trials of the late 17th century. Bostrom brings us into the present and the future, where he talks about artificial intelligence. Now, we may be creating our own doom. This, of course, is reflected in a lot of popular movies, such as I, Robot, The Matrix, the Terminator movies. So we've seen, and many others, this idea of artificial intelligence. People are hard at work in laboratories and universities and research centers all around the world. Are they creating our own demise? Lastly is a passage from Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov wrote the book I, Robot, which is actually a collection of short stories, one of which is called Robbie. And we have the essential part of Robbie here in our textbook. Robbie takes a different look at artificial intelligence and robots in general. I would say a more positive look. A look that says that maybe we'll be helped. So please read through all the essays. Consider the questions that are here on this list, whether they're reflection and response questions or making connection questions, and go ahead and get started.